sit back, relax, and let's start the motherfucking beat.
Get this message out here. I'm doing what I love to help a community out. Like, I mean,
what is the next step? What's the one thing I can do today that's going to get us one?
So, I don't know what's in the future.
Art is the only way you can reach out to the future. It is the only thing that actually lives through a time capsule.
And I think that if the DIY scene as a whole put more of a value on itself, it could be a lot more sustainable.
Now, if someone doesn't like it, that's their deal.
Let's get some composure. Let's get my shit together. Hi, friends. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Yep. It's been great to see the band grow. I'm kind of just jumping into it.
Yeah.
The new record is great. I have it here because you sent it to me. I just want to let the listeners know that The Long Hunt is the first band to ever send me a press package before coming on the show.
Really?
Yes.
Whoa.
People have sent me like links online and emails, but like the first physical CD with some nice little notes.
Yeah, you like the notes.
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah.
I always
Very
respect the professionalism and the trying. And it's cool, again, to see, you doing all the art and everything.
Yeah.
And I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves. I didn't even do my introduction yet. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll ease our way into a nice conversation about making music and art and doing things that are fun. Hello, and welcome to Start the Beat with Sikes. My name is Sikes, and this is my podcast. Before we get started, I just wanted to take a quick moment to thank everyone who checked out last week's episode. If you're one of the people who enjoyed that conversation, I hope you enjoyed it. And thanks for listening. I think I messed that up. It doesn't matter. But for those of you out there who are new to the show, welcome. Please feel free to make yourselves at home. And as always, there's beer and soda in the fridge. But today, I'm drinking a coffee. My guests
Iced
are drinking
coffee.
coffees.
Hot coffee.
Hot coffees versus iced coffees on the podcast today. Do either of you have preference, or is it just that's how it is for today?
I think I need the hot.
Hot is the preference, but a nice cold coffee is all right now and again.
Yeah, you got to load it up with sugar, though.
Yeah.
And for anyone who hasn't read the episode description or just somehow stumbled into this conversation, how about you two introduce yourselves, and we will go from there.
This is Trevor, the male voice of the duo here. We're down a member today. The Long Hunt is a three-piece. I play guitar. The Long Hunt is a three-piece instrumental minimalist drone heavy psych band out of Pittsburgh. And joining me is the lovely
Allison, and I play bass in The Long Hunt.
Yes.
As I mentioned before, this is your returning conversation. The first time we ever met in person was when Trevor had reached out via email like a professional, asking to come on the podcast. And it's been great meeting all three of you. We've since become... We become acquainted. We see each other at events every so often. I've still yet to come see your band play live, and I feel terrible about that. I apologize.
It's all right.
Yeah. I will.
I'm shaking my head, listeners.
I know they see it on camera.
Yeah.
I want to come, but it's. I don't know. Maybe we could start the conversation here, where being artists and creatives, where I think you both do things outside of The Long Hunt as well creatively. Like Trevor does photography, does all the artwork for the project, and you have your recently started blog things that you're doing that we can get into if you would so like down the road. And I'm sure there's other things that we do. How do you navigate your real life with your hobbies and all of that and still manage to get out to shows and have a social life, or do you struggle with that same sort of thing too?
Well, I think I just listened to the Mike Hitt podcast, and that was the question you don't want anyone else to ask you.
Yeah.
How do you do it? If you want to do it, you do it. Right?
Yeah, totally.
But it is tough though. Like you said, you haven't made it out to a show. We would love to go to more shows, but one or two a year for each band isn't too bad for.
Well, yeah, not one or two shows.
And we go to a show every week almost. So.
Yeah. But for as far as our bands that we want to see, your friends' bands, try to get out as much as possible.
Yeah,
but
once every 6
months. There's a lot of bands.
There's a lot of
bands. A lot of people. So
Definitely.
if you hit each band that and once or twice a year, that's quite a few shows.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So it's probably been about maybe like it's been at least a year since we last talked. Longer than that, maybe a year and a half.
Yeah, it was early 2017. Feels weird to talk about that, but
it was before our first show.
Yeah, we were
actually
brand new. I mean, the album was out for about a month, if I remember. So it must have been March, I guess.
I'd say March.
Yeah.
So, okay. We can skip a lot of the normal getting to know each other conversation stuff. If anybody's interested, go back to that episode.
Yeah.
But moving forward, how's everything been in the past year and a half with playing shows and meeting people? If you've like found your niche yet, your little corner of the scene yet, or are you still finding yourselves to be chameleons in a sense? Because your music is very adaptable to various demographics, we could say.
Yeah, it is. Our first show was with the Skull and Whorehound and Monolith Wielder, which I guess maybe are no more. But so 3 very heavy bands that are sort of different in each other. One's like a stoner rock, one's like a doom metal, one's kind of like a mix of the two maybe. And since then, we've been sort of, I don't want to say pigeonholed, but we've been playing with a lot of like heavy stoner rock, doom metal type bands. And I think metal fans tend to be pretty open-minded to what we're doing. So I guess that's kind of our fan base in a way. But we've also branched out and played with some other artists that were more just rock oriented, right? I'm trying to think of who we've played with.
So
played Deutschtown last year. That was interesting.
How has then like transcending like unintentionally into the local metal scene been? You know, is that something you were expecting?
Yeah, I like heavy music, I think the most. But it seems like there's 2 metal scenes. There's like the classic metal, which I would almost put you guys in, Grey Walker, and like Vermithrax and those kind of dudes. And then there's like the stoner doom scene with more like Whorehound and you know, the bands I mentioned, Jake the Hawk maybe, a few other ones. So I think, I don't know if we would fit with like more of the extreme metal stuff, but I think the slower, doomier stuff, I think we fit in pretty well. Because we have like an Earth sound, and people know Earth, like if they listen to like doomy stoner metal, like I think they kind of dig what Earth is doing, or Elder, Grails, a few of the other bands.
Some shows that
psych stuff, like heavy psych music.
Some of the shows that we've played with heavier metal bands, there's usually 1 or 2 people that say after we play, like, oh, you remind me of Earth, or are you trying to sound like Earth? And we're like, oh, you get what we're trying to do.
It's either that or you guys sound like the Doors.
Yeah.
Which I don't know.
I could see
somebody like almost, I don't want to name the name, but he's like, don't take this the wrong way, but you guys remind me of the Doors. I'm like, that's a compliment. That's not a negative thing. Like,
it wouldn't be sad to sound like the Doors.
It's like,
But even like we played with Action Camp a few times, and I mean they have a doom sound, but not like a metal doom sound. So I mean we kind of can transfer our music into more of that scene a little bit too.
Yeah.
So now you got a new record out, and a year and a half later, you got another collection of songs here. Let's get into like the recording process and everything with that, because the one thing when I listened to the record, it's a really good, like, it sounds like people playing music. You know, I feel like you really like there's that minimalist approach to the production on the record. And it sounds great. But I wonder, Trevor, with you as a producer and engineer, because you recorded a good chunk of the record, right? Like, did you have to fight the urge to like do like lots of layers and production things that you could have done to just make some of these recordings huge? Some of the songs like really open up and just like, whoa, you know. But there's also the minimalism of it also creates like an intimate experience when you're listening to it. Like you really feel like you're kind of closed in a room with a few people playing music versus like this huge symphony of dense sound. But as a producer, it would be fun to do that.
Oh, yeah,
so
for sure. Yeah.
How was that internal struggle for you when recording this new record?
Oh, I think it's definitely more layered than the EP was. I think the EP has even more of a live in a room sound, and part of that is the production, which I didn't use any fake reverbs on the EP, so it's all room tones. I even like reamped guitar tracks and drums and stuff out of a small speaker and then like mic'd what that sounded like in a room.
I believe we talked about this on the last podcast. I remember, yeah.
So that was that has its drawbacks or whatever, but it had like a very small sound. And then this one, I kind of killed all the room dynamics, especially for the guitar. Like I put it in a closet, killed all the room dynamics in the closet, and just it had that close mic sound. And then any reverb you hear is artificial. So, I guess it has a bigger sound simply because of that, because you're going into the artificial reverb and it just like spreads out more rather than here's a guitar, here's another guitar, and then, you know, you can hear everything in the mix, whereas here everything kind of, it almost is more mono to me. It's like less spread out stereo.
Yeah, the mix is very in your face.
Yeah.
Like everything's just like right there, which it's really easy to do that, especially with instrumental.
Yeah.
Versus like needing to mix vocals into a song and then like they just eat up all your frequencies, and then you have to start battling and panning things out.
Yeah, and part of that I think is I took a nod from metal production where you do a lot of guitar duplication. So like you have one guitar playing the riff on the left channel and then same guitar playing like doubled up. And I think some of them have like quad tracked, and some might even have 8 tracks of guitar.
On this project?
On the new one, yeah. Like Negative Teeth I think has 8 guitar tracks excluding the leads. So I like quadded it and then doubled that. So yeah, so it's more of a traditional metal sound. So like mixed with the fake reverb and sort of more of a traditional duplication or quad tracking of guitars. And then, like you said, you know, you don't have to worry about the vocals, so everything's sort of centered. So it's a very big in-your-face sound. So as far as to answer your question, which about production,
I guess there's more production on it than you'd notice easily.
Yeah.
It sounds very clean and not. I know what track you're talking about, and it doesn't sound like there's 8 guitar layers on it. But I'm gonna probably go back and listen to it again and see if I can pick it out.
A lot of it's just duplication, so it's the exact same part, just doubled. Or
totally.
But take some of the more dronier songs like the first track, Ground of Being, or track 3, like Closing the Circle, where they have like those big extended parts where it's like repeating drones and stuff. There's a lot going on. I had this weird trick where I would get a Mellotron, which is like those keyboards that play back tape loops.
Yeah.
And I wish I had a real Mellotron, but these are just emulated or whatever. But I found like a Mellotron cello sample, and she was doing like these big drone hits on the bass where she'd just hit these like whole notes or whatever and just like let them ring. And I would actually find that note and double it with the Mellotron cello sample. So if you listen for it on some of those tracks, you hear this like warbling.
Oh, that's super cool.
Yeah, and it's just buried in there. So there's like little tricks like that. That's, I guess, you know, it is pretty produced, but it's not overdone. Like I don't like the sound. I think we talked about this last time. Like you want to sound like a band. You don't want to sound fake. You know, you don't want your drums like sounding like triggered drums or guitar sounding like you just went direct or whatever. It's like it's all real amps. You know, real drums.
There's definitely some production on the last track on the record too. Some more layers and everything, which that's a cover song, right? Let's dig into that.
It's a cover song in the sense that I didn't write the main melody. It's over 700 years old, and around the Middle Ages there were religious songs called cantigas written, and there were like 400 to 500 cantigas written, and each cantiga had to deal with a specific miracle. And I think this one just happens to be like, you know, somebody has to take a offering of wax to an altar every year or something because he had his like sight restored through some miracle. I don't know. but that's irrelevant. So each cantiga is
or relevant,
or it's possibly relevant. I don't know. I'll get to why we even bothered to cover it, but so that's cool or whatever. So it's a really old song, and the melodies that we're playing on that track is pretty accurate to the actual original melody. And the reason I even know about this, because I'm not like digging up like old medieval songs, is in the original Conan the Barbarian with Arnold. There's the scene where because how many like heroes are in there? It's like you have Conan, you have like the woman, and there's like a sidekick or whatever. So when the three meet, within the first like 20-30 minutes, they go to a town, and it's like called the Tower of Set, and it's like the first big snake scene. So anyways, they're playing.
Are you familiar?
Have you watched Conan? Yeah.
I haven't watched it in a very long time.
Okay.
I saw it when I was younger. Yeah,
we watched it recently. We got the DVD from Half Price Books a few years ago, and then we finally watched it. And
years later.
I know what that's like.
Yeah, and there's a song playing in the background, and it's like this really cool droning melody, and I'm like, what is that? And I remembered from my childhood like really digging the song too, and I looked into it, and it's not on the original soundtrack. Like you can't get this song on the soundtrack. So it's like, well, who is it? Well, it's this band covering the 700-year-old cantiga. So I just dug into it, found out that it was they were doing a cover. It wasn't originally made for the movie, and I figured it'd be cool to do a song that was on the Conan soundtrack that's also 700 years old.
Yeah.
So
it sounds sweet. It's a great ender for the album.
Yeah.
And there's like a lot of additional, it seems like, instrumentation in it, with what I'm assuming are probably like keyboard sounds.
Yeah.
There's like layered, I don't remember if they were like horns or strings or something. It was just like, it was very like thick.
Yeah, there's a drone that opens the track, and that's an instrument called a tempura. And it's basically a 4-string Indian classical. Whenever you hear Indian classical music, you hear that drone, and like they actually pluck these strings in succession to create this like weird matrix of sound that the other instruments play off of. And I don't have the real deal, but it's just like it's actually a box, and you choose what key you want the drone to play in, and you just press the button.
So it's still like a physical
I
thing.
mic'd it up.
Yeah.
It has a little speaker.
That's super cool. So like it seems like you like have this, like, I don't know how big it is, but it seems like there's definitely this knowledge base of bizarre instruments in your head.
Yeah, there's a lot of bizarre things in my head.
So like with the instruments and like finding cool things, like, using like an emulated mellotron on the record, or using this instrument that I can't remember what you said it was. I already forgot the name of it.
It's either tempura or tambura.
Well, that's what
one is an Indian dish that you eat, and the other one's an instrument. So
when did you first start digging into using these we'll say unconventional instruments and like adapting them into your music? And then how do we go about incorporating those into the live versions of your songs?
Yeah,
do you, or is it just that's kind of the production stuff that's record only?
Yeah, it for that especially, it's just record only, and I kind of like that, because we don't really play that song out too much. I think we played it at Howlers like earlier this year or last year.
I think we maybe played
and that was maybe the
2 or 3
second
times.
time we ever played it. We also played there's a metal fest called Descendants of Crom.
Yeah.
And Crom is the god from Conan. So we actually played it at Descendants of Crom last year, and we're playing this year again. So
You'll probably play it again.
It
go over pretty well.
Yeah, most people didn't know, but like the people who did know, they're like, that's the Conan song. We're like, yes, it is.
Yeah. Also, that was
acoustic.
Yeah,
right.
So this year will be full blast.
Yeah. So when we play it live, we don't have any of the additional instruments. We just do like bare bones, typical 3-piece stuff, and we do like an extended jam for the middle part where you have those weird tambourine things going on where they pan back and forth.
Yeah. I was gonna say there's a lot of layering and stuff in some of the songs, but like you said, you didn't really think that there was a lot of layering. But to me, that's how the song sounds when we play it live. But it may or may not. But like what you're putting in there when you produce it is like how like the real sound for me. So it's cool that you didn't think there was a lot of other stuff going on, even though there was, because that's what it sounds like in my head.
Yeah.
At least.
Yeah, what it sounds like to other people, we don't know. But
do you, Allison, have the thing where if you're listening to a recording, like you unintentionally like zone in on the bass parts, like you focus on that more than the other things?
Yeah. I mean, yes, naturally, but I try to focus on other things when I need to.
So I'm curious then, if maybe because of that, that's something that's, since like, I don't know if you were around when Trevor was recording all of the guitar parts and like seeing the screen and like noticing how much stuff was getting tracked. So maybe, I don't know if you saw it or not, maybe you didn't. So you just had no idea. So you hear it, it's like, it sounds right. It's like anytime if you like see the screen, it just changes everything.
Yeah.
We just finished up the new Greywalker album and I mixed the record.
Nice.
So Ricky and Evan, they recorded the guitars themselves at their house, and then they sent me the stems. And whenever I got the stems, it's just like this wall. Like, oh my god, there's so much stuff in here. But it doesn't like sound like it when it's all locked in. But yeah,
I guess that's good mixing and good production. You can't tell. There's like 36 tracks.
It's still daunting, like when you're sitting there in front of the computer and you're like, holy shit, like what am I gonna do? You have to start punching holes for everything.
Yeah, I mean,
it's tough.
I heard and saw Trevor tracking a lot of the stuff, but I mean for Hum, which was Trevor's second solo album,
right?
You had like, how many tracks did you have on some
that
of that
was
stuff?
Overkill. I mean, I was like,
I mean, it sounded great, but so that, I mean, I saw all of that.
Yeah, the way I did that, I kind
of
wrote it as I recorded, which is not between a good thing.
That's what they do, between the buried and me.
Yeah, and I think there's that can work if you have more than yourself, I think, sometimes. So, that's kind of like, my head was in front of a computer screen half the time, up my ass half the time, basically, because you're like lost in your own world.
Yeah.
Earlier today, I went over to my friend Jared's house.
Yeah.
And we were just like, okay, let's have a productive day. Let's just get together and let's make a song. And we got together and I like basically demoed out a full track. He wrote lyrics for the whole thing and we recorded vocals for the whole thing.
Wow.
Like an entire track front to back in like 4.5 hours.
Wow.
I mean, granted, it's like a very silly kind of like a jokey goth song with like some really dramatic vocals. Like we were just having fun.
Yeah.
But what we were talking about was how much easier it is to do something like that with somebody else because just like, hey, what do you think of this? And then he's like, yeah, sounds good, let's go for it. Versus me being like, well, I don't know, and then just going in circles in my head about what's a good idea, what's a bad idea, and then just never reaching an end point, just like walking in circles in my head. So I imagine with you working on solo material, being as interested in production as it seems you are, and the knowledge of different instruments and possibilities with, maybe random things you have laying around the house, combined with all of the plugins and digital things that are accessible. It's like you need to like be able to just ring it in. But I also have an idea that maybe with your solo stuff, you're a little bit more unrestricted. Like you're kind of like willing to take it wherever it's going to go. Yeah. And that makes it even worse.
Yeah, it does.
It's like we could do whatever we want.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I mean, and then that was a different time. I mean, this was like 3 years ago now. And I'm not saying skill wise or anything like that, but I mean, I played drums on some of the tracks and I wasn't, I haven't played drums for very long, probably about 3 or 5 years. And that's like 2 of that not really playing drums. So kind of screwed up on some of that, but I did have a lot of my friends like play, like I wrote all the stuff and then I would have them come in and kind of add their own ideas or whatever,
like interpret your stuff or add to it. Yeah,
I think that's the way to go. Have like somebody who actually knows what they're doing on whatever instrument to come in.
Pretty much what I do with Sikes and the New Violence. It's like all this stuff is kind of like, here's the song. I have like the structure from front to back with all of the parts, and it's like, well, I'm not a bass player. I'm not a guitar player. I have some little dinky do little things that I programmed out, but come on in and make it sound human.
Yeah,
And
right.
that's what we do.
A good thing to do, I'm sure you do it, is to limit yourself just before you even sit down and write, either through technology or, limiting yourself to how many elements you even want in the mix. Like, oh, I want to write a song with just a drum machine and just a keyboard or something or whatever. And I think technology, too many options like kind of screws me over. So I haven't actually sat down to do it, but I plan on sitting down either in front of a 4-track tape recorder, or I have an old school like Boss 8-track digital recorder, and just writing some songs on that.
Yeah.
And just be like, this is what I have to work with. Now I won't necessarily release this because 4-track sounds like complete garbage to me. Especially the one I have. And then the digital 8-track's all right, but just sitting there and
Challenge yourself.
challenge yourself. You have a limited amount of parameters, limited amount of plugins.
Well, I think that, if you're able to put together a good product on that, it really speaks to the power of the song.
Mm-hmm.
I feel that if you have a genuinely good song, I think like a good song can be written poorly because good is subjective.
Right.
But like if you, instead of saying good, we'll say strong.
Yeah.
Like a very strong song, I feel, is a song that you can strip down to the bare bones and it still gets its point across. It doesn't need all of the bells and whistles for it to work, which is what's probably good about you being able to perform your songs without needing the extra bells and whistles that you add, because that's not those aren't the foundation of the song. The foundation of the song is still just the melodies and the rhythms that you three are putting in as a band.
Yeah.
Versus me as a rapper in my not strong songs, because everything relies on samples and things like that.
Well, even if you just rapped, it would still be strong.
I could just do spoken word.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that's kind of the essence of rap songs, maybe.
Yeah, that's debatable depending on who you're talking to, but it is definitely a very important part. It's almost like we're polar opposites, almost in a way, in that sense, because there's not one word that is spoken in your music versus me coming from a hip hop background where it's like all lyrics.
There's a hidden track where we just cover Gucci Gang or whatever. Like that. It's a 20-minute version of that song. No.
Do we really have that?
Yes. You haven't listened to the album?
Well, maybe it's really hidden.
Yeah.
Like really far in there.
It's in there. One thing about this album too, we actually, all the songs we got to play in front of people for a year before we recorded. So, what they sounded like early in 2017 is not what they necessarily sounded like when we recorded, which was pretty cool. Like we got audience feedback. I think the song's like really stretched out.
Yeah.
And we were writing like in my head, I was thinking about production the entire time, because we were talking about recording in September probably, and we're thinking about recording, and we didn't even get into the studio until January of this year. So.
Yeah. Our first, the EP, we didn't play in front of anybody.
Yeah.
Before when we recorded it, and then we just were like, "Here, everybody, what do you think?" And so it's very opposite of this one, because it had a lot of feedback. So
that's exactly what I'm dealing with now with the new Sikes and New Violence record, because of just different situations and circumstances. It's just like I had all these songs are done. In my head, they were done, but just things come up. I don't get around to it. And then, somebody left the band, and then we got somebody else in new. And it's like, oh, okay, so now these songs sound a little different.
Right.
But now it's cool. And then I was like, well, maybe I want to get my friend to play guitar on a song.
Oh, nice.
Now, he played guitar on the whole album. He's in the band. After recording one song, I was like, this sounds good. Let's try another one. Okay. Well, accidentally just roped him into the band. So now it's kind of cool, though, because if I would have rushed to record those songs and then put them out there, the album wouldn't be what it is now, or what it's going to be, because it's still not done. But it's been cool because we are playing the songs, and I haven't done that before with a Sikes project, because with the solo stuff, when I don't have the band, that's different, because I'll be playing shows, but it's like the backtracks don't end up changing too much because it's all programmed and automated. It's not. It doesn't have those. There's no human error when you have like, say, like you're playing a show and you fumble something, or you're at a rehearsal and you, let's try this today, and like it changes the whole dynamic of the song. The happy accidents, we'll call them.
Right.
You don't really get those in hip hop production too often. It definitely does happen when you're just messing around. But
yeah, for sure.
it's a lot rarer than being in a room with, 2, 3, 4 other people that are all capable of making a mistake that accidentally sounds awesome.
Right. That's interesting.
Yeah.
I've written songs by myself, like on guitar, but not too much. So playing with a band is probably the main experience that I have. So it's interesting to think about that.
Whenever just writing stuff by yourself, is that just sort of like a practice or killing time sort of thing, or do you have like a passion to actually create like solo art, or is it a mixture?
Well, as far as anything that I do on my own, probably more writing, like just word writing, stories, prose, things like that. But when I first started playing music as a teenager, I pretty much only played by myself and wrote songs and sang and things like that. But once I started playing bass, I really just practiced and made up things on the bass, but not really songs. And I still sometimes will write something on guitar, but not really for the purpose of anyone hearing it or playing it live. But I've had kind of like as I've been writing more recently, kind of having like an itch to maybe try to write some songs again. But I'm really much more interested in playing bass and kind of that, how the bass is connected with the other music, more so than being on my own. Yeah, I'm more of a glue person than a spearhead, I guess. I'm not good with metaphors. Trevor is. So yeah,
sounds good to me.
Yeah, so that's more interesting to me, but I still do write sometimes.
You write riffs, though.
Well, yeah, I write riffs.
Like I'll hear you in there writing riffs, but that's how you just practice,
Yeah.
Just come up with little repeating patterns, and then it kind of turns into more of a muscle memory thing. So when you jam with people, you can just whip them out and change the key maybe or whatever. But
yeah.
Trevor, do you find yourself ever just working on songs that you don't have any intent of releasing, like just brain exercises or things like that?
Yeah.
Or like making, like, I find myself in this hole of only making art for the sake of it always has a purpose. Like it's like I very rarely, today was probably one of the first days in years where me and my friend just made something because we were goofing around and just wanted to do it. Do you ever get a chance to just do that, or is it always like, oh, I need to do a Long Hunt song, or I'm working slowly on my new solo record, or this or that?
I'm always writing something, unless if I actually sit down and say I'm not going to even think about writing music. So like the early part of this year, didn't write anything new, and then when I actually sat down to just either, like you were saying, just dick around and not have any intent, or to sit down and actually try to write something.
Do you like sit down, like do you like schedule time to sit down, or like you're like, I'm gonna work on music now?
Yeah, I pretty much I play every day if I can, and a lot of it is sort of ad lib because I have like a loop station set up, so like I'll just play through the looper and then just
get lost in the sauce for a while.
Yeah, like I was playing something earlier, like it was just off of like one note, and I was probably going for like 25 minutes. It was just, and what happens is you'll get like
always,
a little.
Somehow it's always awesome sounding.
It's always the same song, so
no, it's not. No, but it's very enjoyable for me to be here.
So what happens is you'll get like a little nugget out of that. That'll maybe turn into something down the road.
Do you like record that stuff at all? Or you
sometimes I'll get the phone out.
Yeah.
But I find once you start setting up the recording, it's gone by then.
Because your brain's focused on the engineering and not the creating.
That, or you just lose the vibe that you had, and you're like, well, what was I even doing?
Like if you have to stop, get the phone out, or
it's even like that at band practice. Like if we'll like occasionally jam or like have like a part or whatever, and we'll just be like going on it for 25 minutes, 30 minutes or whatever. We're like, that sounds awesome. Let's start from scratch and record it so we have it on our phone.
Yeah.
And it's like the recorded version is always subpar, like, because you just lose whatever vibe you had going on. So how to answer your question, if I can remember specifically what it was.
Do you ever just make art for, I mean, it kind of sounds like you do, just in a sense of just like practicing, messing around with different effects and seeing what they do and what's possible.
I think I always, even the Long Hunt is sadly kind of art for art's sake, with maybe the intent on trying to push it to as many people as you can. But I mean, I think the music comes first. But I see what you mean.
Like I don't mean to cut off your thought.
Yeah.
But I have a friend who's an incredibly talented musician, producer, records bands, and he's one of those jerks that can pick up anything, and he's like a virtuoso.
Oh,
you know,
no.
like how?
Yeah.
You know, just it makes you mad, but you're also really happy for it.
Yeah.
You know? So he has like not layers, like folders, albums worth of solo material that I'm talking like drums, guitar, bass, everything's produced, like he's done it, like full fleshed out things. And he's just like, yeah, I'm probably never gonna release this. I just like driving around listening to it knowing that I did it.
Yeah.
And like he's totally content with that, and that just blows my mind.
That's interesting.
You know,
I'd like to know the
to be able to
psychology of
have that sort of control, or just not want to have any desire to like share your art with the world. I have another friend that paints, and she was on the podcast a long time ago, and she was telling me about how she has like a website that her art's on, but she doesn't have her name on it, and she very rarely like shows people her stuff and doesn't like talking about it, just because she just wants the art to be like so separate from her life that it's like she can like, it's like in a way it's like more artistic than anything else, because it's just like she escapes into this world that nobody around her really knows about. She does her thing, and then that's it, and then just comes back to the normal world with her friends and her peers, and it's completely separate. And I'm like, wow, that's great, but like I don't think I could do that, because I'm so like, you know, the second I get a song done, it's like, I can't wait to put this on fucking Bandcamp.
Yeah.
I'm kind of like that, and I'm like all of those things in a way, because I have a ton of songs that are done or whatever, but I guess I just use a really specific criteria on what actually gets released. Like I thought like about,
it's curated.
Yeah, it's very curated. Especially now. I mean, you know,
That's
we
also
have
an artsy word.
Yeah, it is. It sounds artsy.
It's in our museum of curated songs.
I think now with the Long Hunt, we have like a very specific like aesthetic, and I just don't want to spoil that with just releasing anything. And even even like solo stuff, I want to be careful with what I put out.
Well, now people are hearing it, and you're building a air quote a fan base, and you're building those expectations. So, and it always feels good to make new music for fans that are people that have reacted well to previous music, because now it's like you have those people in mind when you're writing. Does that ever affect your creative process, like thinking about what other people are going to think of your music and what they're going to like once you establish like you establish people outside of you like knowing what you are and what you do?
Yeah, it does to an extent. I think how people are going to respond to what's out there, either we're playing it or a release, is going to affect me. So I'm not like your friend where I can just, separate myself from it completely. So it's maybe not art for art's sake in that sense. So there's definitely like an ego thing where you want we do it partially to play in front of people and get the applause or the reaction at the very least, and comments and so on and so forth. But I don't think we're writing music necessarily to appeal to any specific audience. And if it is a specific audience, it's definitely not one that's paying too much money. So like if we were just writing for other people, I would definitely go for something more mainstream. Just to reach as many people as I possibly could. And
have either of you like dabbled in writing more air quote mainstream music?
Yeah. I was in a pop rock band called the Fixes, and that was probably the closest we got to it. Where I think if we played more, we probably would have reached more people. But the singer that was definitely his goal, was to like be a pop star. He was like the trifecta, we call it. Like he was like a model, a singer, and an actor. So he trifecta.
Yeah.
So he
Right.
Things going okay for them now?
I don't know. He's in New York.
Okay.
You
can leave
New
it at
York
that.
City.
Make it sound mysterious.
And I check in on him every once in a while, and he's doing his thing. But it's like I'd rather be somebody who's moderately successful in a place like Pittsburgh rather than like somebody who's just not even known to anybody in New York because you're like one of a million. It doesn't matter, but
there's no right or wrong way to be content as an artist. I've had this argument with people in my personal life before that have told me like I should be doing this or that, like, and Pittsburgh isn't the place for me. And it's just like, you son of a bitch.
Yeah.
Like
right.
I have a house I like and people in my life that I really care about. I'm in a band with my best friends. I have a good job. I support it's like at some point, I don't like to make it sound like it's like a plateau or settling. At some point, it's like, I worked really hard to get where I am as a functioning human adult.
Right.
And I'm happy with where I am. Why can't you just let me enjoy this for a little bit? Like,
right.
What is the end goal? A lot of people they get everything they want and then they just want more. They don't ever spend time with, when they finally reach something, they don't spend the time with it to enjoy it. It's like a lot. It's like me with all these fucking records behind me.
Right.
It's just like, how often I don't listen to records nearly enough. But it's like, I have all this shit. And it's like, oh, cool. I finally got this thing that I wanted. This record that I've been wanting for years. And I listen to it once and it goes through on the shelf. And it's more plastic and cardboard in the house.
Yeah, you probably have a few years worth of music right there if you did end to end.
Yeah.
I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah. I mean, there's always the, the search for, or at least there's other people searching for you to say, well, how could you be better? Or like, how will you be more successful? We joke because we have family that always say, oh, maybe one day you'll be on Leno. We're like, well, Leno's not even a thing now, but like, that's never been our intention.
Right.
But
could you imagine this music? We're going to play a 16-minute like drone song
but that
for you guys.
Yeah. But that's a lot of people's standard of success. And we're not even aiming for that. So, I think, like you said, feeling successful or taking the time to have some gratitude for the small successes or just the enjoyment that you're having is really important.
Yeah, I think it's something that a lot of people unfortunately overlook, and it's a bummer.
Yeah.
I wonder how much of it has to do with our. I think a lot of it might have to do with the social media and repeat word, the curation of our lives, and everybody, sharing the best of our best things. Like, check me out. I'm in New York City.
Yeah.
I'm kind of bored, not having a good time. That's why I'm posting pictures of myself in New York City while I'm in New York City. But I'm here, and it's glamorous.
Yeah.
Anytime I see, I don't know. I always think behind the lens. Anytime it's like, it's like, oh, you're in Miami on the beach. Like, why you get off your Instagram story?
Right.
Go have some fun.
Yeah.
You're at this show. Get off your phone. Stop it.
It always makes me
are
wonder.
you really having fun?
Right.
Yeah.
Or are you just doing these things so you could show everybody else in internet land that you're doing them?
Yeah. It's like you don't believe you're having fun, so you want other people to think you are, to convince you that you are.
Yeah.
Totally.
Like a feedback loop.
Yeah, it's a feedback loop of having fun.
And I think a lot of it leads to that, just not appreciating what you have when you have it.
Yeah.
Because, you have something, you finally get somewhere you want to go. You spend the whole time on your phone, and then all of a sudden you see I'm in New York, but so-and-so's in LA. I've never been to LA, so now I feel bad about myself again because I'm not in LA. Right.
Well, I have a question for you.
Yo.
We can turn the tables.
Totally.
So thinking about social media, and I've heard you talk about if you create if you have good creations, you put them on social media or whatever. That's the way you're going to get on social media people to like your things. And
just having like genuinely good content.
Yeah.
Totally.
So I don't know if you have this experience, but what happens if you have good content and you still don't get any feedback? How does that affect you? It's one of the things I'm thinking about writing about on the blog, because I feel like that there's such a mind fuck actually with that.
So there's obviously issues where you have things like Instagram will shadow ban users that maybe post too frequently or use too many hashtags or particular hashtags. Facebook has their weird algorithm things that they're doing supposedly or not. I don't know. I do think the stuff exists, but I think a lot of people recently have been using those excuses as a crutch of sorts to be like, oh, I'm putting things out there, but nobody is seeing it or nobody's reacting to it because, Facebook's blocking my posts or Instagram's blocking my posts, whatever. There may be some truth to that, but I also think the flip of it is the fact that these people, their content isn't as good as they think it is. A mean metaphor would be like, your kid's not that pretty. Or your kid's not that smart, something like that. So for me personally, I think it's just being really aware of what I post, and if something doesn't work out, telling myself, oh, maybe it is Facebook. Maybe Facebook blocked this post because I tagged a page in it or something like that, and that makes Facebook want me to pay money for it because I'm tagging a business in it or something like that. Or maybe my post just sucks, and I got to get better about looking into like when I'm timing of posts when you're posting things and am I wording this the right way, am I attaching the right image to it that's gonna grab people's attention. People are very short attention span now, especially when it comes to social media, so you just gotta have that right thing that gets their attention. And I don't know, I don't have a formula for it. A recent example that I can give for you just posting content that's simple that people care about would be when we announced the Grey Walker CD release show. So we announced, typically I would think, okay, if we were to post something from the Grey Walker Facebook page and we tag other bands in it, we tag business in it, because we tag the bands we're playing with, we tag the venue, and post it from the business page. If we don't sponsor this post, nobody's going to see it. That's the thought that I have in my head, right? But it was big news for us as a band. Hey, we're releasing a show, or we're releasing our new album. Here's the date. Here's the show, the event page. We didn't sponsor it at all, and it blew up. But I think it was just because people are seeing our posts, and we finally just posted something that was worth everybody's attention versus like, oh, here's a link to our album again on Bandcamp that we've been posting for the past year and a half. Here's just a picture of us at band practice again. Like it might be exciting to us, but other people, they don't really care.
Yeah.
So I think that being very reserved, I don't think we need to post on social media 3 times a day like some people might want us to believe we need to fight through. I think it's just saving it for when you have something that's worth posting, and if it doesn't get the traction, being comfortable with being analytical and critical of what you're posting, and just find a way to do better. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
You use it as a challenge or inspiration.
Totally, a challenge. If something doesn't work, there's no reason that, because you gotta remember that there are other people that are posting things that blow up. You know what I mean? It's whether it's something silly like that yodeling Walmart kid. You know about that meme? There was like a video of a little kid that was yodeling in a Walmart with like a cowboy hat on, and it blew up. And then like he got like a record deal and all this stuff,
geez.
or other like weird like YouTube viral sensations. But those are just like, that's like mind numbing stuff.
Yeah.
So people gravitate towards that stuff, and it's a quick buck for people. But then there are other artists and bands that are instrumental, psych, doom bands that are successful with what they do just because they find that audience and they find their voice that people gravitate to. So it's just a matter of, if something's not working, don't keep doing it.
Yeah.
Figure out how to switch it and figure out what attracts your fan base.
Yeah, that's helpful because
Sorry, I can ramble forever.
yeah, no, that's why I wanted to ask you because we've talked to other musicians and friends and stuff, and that's like that always comes up, and a lot of people find themselves kind of just depressed or down about it, and almost like stopping what they're doing. So wanted to hear another person's opinion.
I think that it's really important that no matter what you're doing, it still needs to be genuine.
Yeah, absolutely.
If it gets to a point where you're if you're compromising your morals or your integrity as a band and what your the whole meaning behind your band in favor of getting a boost on social media, then it's not worth it because then you're reaching success in a way of not even being yourself. And now it's all of a sudden you have to keep up this facade. It's just a matter of finding a way to, naturally grow that. But it could be hard because let's take, for example, your core fan base or what might be your potential core fan base. They might not be people that hang out on Instagram all day.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
They're not, because that's the thing, is it's like, if your fan base isn't social media based people, if they're more like thinkers, artists, people that aren't into being, on their phone all the time, then you're going to have a hard time reaching them through social media.
Yeah.
So, it's like more of like a playing shows, getting into doing things. I don't know how often you've been playing out of town or how often you're able to, but just the more shows, meeting people, organic interactions. Something I've been saying a lot recently is this is like my new freaking catchphrase is the social media should be an accessory to your real life.
Yeah.
Your real life shouldn't be an accessory to your social media. And that's how a lot of people are living. So
well, to go back to your original question about blending your personal life and your hobbies and your music and your work and everything, I think what's been interesting is with Trevor's photography and my blog, it's kind of blended, taking photos of bands, talking to other musicians about their experiences and stuff like.
Yeah, let's chat about the blog, because I mentioned at the beginning of this that I did want to get to that, and we're kind of so drop some knowledge on us about the blog and everything you've been doing with that.
Well,
what's it called?
Oh, okay. It's called Of Music and Mind, and it's really about the intersection of musical issues, creativity, writing, playing, and mind issues, which could also be creativity and mental illness, thinking, just like a lot, anything related to the mind.
I'm sorry, I feel like we kept sidestepping this. I kind of, the one point I kept trying to get to when we were talking about like what it does to you if something doesn't work out.
Yeah, because that's what a lot of people want to know.
About being yourself no matter what. I think that, you have to understand that if you feel confident about your art originally, like you have that feeling that it was good, then it's good. If it's good to you, it's going to be good for somebody else. You can't let somebody else's like negativity bring you down or make you think differently about your art. Like, especially if it's something that like really like, sometimes when you make like a piece of art that's like really good, it like changes the way you feel about yourself. It makes you feel better about yourself because you're able to create this thing from your mind that's like fucking awesome.
Yeah.
And then, to have somebody say like, it's one thing to be like, hey, that's not for me, I don't like it. But somebody's like, fuck that, it sucks, or people ignore it. Then fuck them back. Don't let that negativity get down on what made you feel so good about yourself.
Yeah.
I'll end that there.
Yeah, that's it. I'll put that on the blog. That's good advice.
Okay. I know it's not the easiest things. It took me like, unfortunately, a really long time to get to where I am now. Like, I love having younger guests on the show. Like people, I've talked with people that are like 18, 19, 20. It's like that have like the same amount of like energy as me. And it's like, fuck, I'm like 32 now. It's like, I wish I had your drive and your resources when I was 18 or 19.
Yeah.
So it took me almost 10 years just to figure out how to like talk to people. Yeah. I started this podcast because I sucked at talking to people. And now it's all I do.
Right.
I mean, I've gotten a little better at it, but it's like it helps, you know. It's like it just took so long to take the initiative, and like other things like figuring out how to promote things, how to book shows, and also doing that in the middle of so many changes with, you know, the digital age coming through. It's like the growing pains of the digital age was like I basically grew with those.
Mhm.
It's like I
Yeah.
started making music and playing shows like right as MySpace was taking off, which was
Yeah.
kind of like where all of this shit started. So it was like I grew with it, and I've had to adapt to all of the changes, and they're always like these little reset buttons.
Mhm.
So you think you got it all figured out, and then they take it away from you. I'm sorry. Please talk about your blog.
Yeah, so we started that in February, and it's just talking about the intersection of those things. So I write some articles based on my experience as a social worker and connecting that with music. We do interviews with musicians talking about, right now we're really focusing a lot on the experience of musicians with depression or suicide or PTSD, things like that. We've done a lot of surveys with the music community just to see like thoughts on different mind issues and how that intersects with music. And Trevor does the photography, so it's really fun when we do interviews with bands or individual people to go and do photo shoots with them. I mean,
Yeah.
we do live. Trevor does the photos out there, but you know, to do live shows, but then we do candid shots and stuff. So it's kind of neat to see people in just, you know, in a different light, kind of, especially if it's people that we don't know. A lot of the people so far have been people that we know, but some
But
people,
not people we know like that well.
yeah,
you
there's
know.
people that, you know, just met them through doing the blog, which, like I said, we're kind of blending hobby, work, going out, because
Yeah,
I'm
that's
quite introverted. So when you said like you did this to start being able to talk with people, this has been a challenge for me. But it's like, oh, I'm doing this for the blog. I have to talk with somebody.
uh-huh.
So
I have like the
it's good.
same mindset where all of the little things that I do, it's like if I try to anytime I'm doing something, I try to weasel something creative out of it. And that's like honestly, that's how the whole 1 minute or less videos
Oh,
thing
right.
happened.
Yeah, those are cool.
Was just the result of like, oh, if I'm just gonna be like spending my time at a restaurant somewhere,
Mhm.
I might as well make a video about it. And it's just like, I don't know. It's like I really hope that like a lot of those stuff doesn't come off as being like very like I'm full of myself or like oh like narcissistic or me, check me out. I'm reviewing these places, but it really comes from more of a thing where it's like I'm out and I'm bored. It's
Mm.
I need to like do something. I need to be creating something no matter what, or
Yeah.
else my brain just goes.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've talked about that, Trevor, just like constantly there's just music in your head, you're composing things in
Yeah.
your mind, and I can check out more easily, just like blank head.
Yeah, it's hard to turn it off,
But
especially at night when you need to go to sleep.
yeah,
Yeah.
but that compulsion for creativity is a real thing, and it's an interesting thing, I'd say.
So what I want to kind of end this conversation on, possibly, I'm sure we're going to go off the rails again, which is fine. That's when the good stuff happens. So talking about creating music, and one thing that I've been really interested in recently, and I haven't brought this up on the podcast at all, but I'm going to start asking more bands about this,
Cool.
is their rehearsal spaces. Because for whatever reason, I've found myself recently in a bunch of different rehearsal space situations, whether it was filming a video for somebody or meeting somebody for a podcast or temporarily practicing like borrowing somebody else's space. I've been in like several different practice spaces and like all the nuanced differences between them, and like how in my brain I'm like thinking either like, oh, like this room feels great and like I really love rehearsing in here, I'm feeling very creative and good, versus like this room feels like a doctor's office and I don't want to be in here. I don't understand how you guys are in here multiple times a week trying to make art.
Right.
What is your rehearsal space like, and how have you tweaked it to benefit the productivity of your band? That's my question.
Well, as far as my room, it's very similar to this type of setup where you've got your workstation and your speakers and your music, and I don't have any Ninja Turtle action figures. I wish I did. I have a Nerf gun that I occasionally shoot. But I don't know. I'm not really big on, like, I think environment affects me a lot.
Totally.
But as far as like decoration stuff, like I kind of suck at it. So
We're both
like,
pretty minimalist.
we're very
in
minimalist. So it's like
style.
everything in the room is just like instruments and computer and, you know, the workstation. But like when I was recording, I would try to like get into a mindset, you know, I'd like light incense or like maybe like turn the lights on a certain way or whatever. Like, but as far as rehearsal space, like the practice space is just at Mark's house, the drummer, and it's
in his tattoo shop.
It's in his tattoo shop.
That adds maybe some coolness to it.
But there's no distractions, like, which is good, because like when you go over his place, it's just like amps in his drum set, and like you go there to practice, and that's what you do, and that's where Emily Rogers practices too. So same place.
Mark is the drummer for Emily Rogers, and I'm the bass player for Emily Rogers. So we practice. But for Emily Rogers, we have 5 people, and for the Long Hunt, we have 3. So it fits. There's a lot more space when we practice.
But I'll tell you what, like I assume you go online here too. Like this is like your window to the world. Do you find that affects you? Because like that thing is just like nipping at me all the time. Like if I'm trying to do something creative, especially if it's on the computer, you like always have that shit popping up.
So you see the third screen over there?
Yeah.
That's actually my main computer that I record all my music on. And it doesn't have internet access.
That's the way to go.
That's cool.
So yeah, I do everything on, like, I basically record podcasts and stuff on the go on the laptop, just because it's half the time when I'm uploading episodes, I might not even be home. I'm like out and about doing something that's like, oh shit, like and I go on and I'm like, I've like recorded intros and uploaded episodes before shows at Howlers before. Like,
oh wow.
Like I got to get there before anybody gets there so I can like use the microphone on the laptop to do what you got to do. But that's very much how things tend to go for me. So that stuff has to stay on the laptop.
Yeah.
But anything serious I do on the other computer, and it's a very conscious decision to keep the internet off of it. And, and just kind of zone out. Most of the time I don't really do a whole lot of like web browsing or anything in here. If I'm doing anything like that, like later on, I need to finish up the CD booklet for the Greywalker CD because we finally got our promo photos back that we took. We just took them on Tuesday. I shouldn't say finally. It was like a 2-day turnaround. It's actually pretty good.
It's very good.
But I'll probably do that either at the table in the kitchen or maybe in the living room. While maybe me and Stacy will watch a movie or something, and I'll kind of like half watch it while I'm working on other stuff.
Yeah.
So it really just depends on what I'm doing. Art stuff I normally do in the kitchen. Last night I was working on some drawings for Rock Bottom. I'm doing some beer label designs for them. So I was drawing and listening to your album, and it's very excellent drawing music, by the way.
Thank you.
I want to let you know, it's like zoning out. There was like one, I mean, granted, it was probably like 2:30 in the morning, but like I was like locked into like some part of one of the songs, and I was like starting to like doze off, but it felt like good. Like I was just like, this is like taking me away.
Yeah,
you know, just like it was awesome.
You like wake up in the magical forest on the album cover.
Yeah. Well, actually, someone told us once our music is really good to do wood whittling too.
Cool.
So
I could totally see that.
Yeah.
So moving forward now, we'll wrap up the show because we're about an hour in.
Nice.
So let's talk more about this record. When exactly is this being released? Is this out or is this coming out soon?
It's coming out on June 1st.
June 1st.
Yeah. So
are you doing any sort of a like release show or anything?
Yeah. So we're playing in Youngstown on the 1st at Cedars.
Shout outs to Cedars.
Yeah.
I love that space.
Love Cedars.
Actually, did we not see
There's a
Greywalker
sticker there. 1 or 2 at least.
Yeah.
At Cedars. So.
Yeah. We played Cedars.
Yeah.
I like that place.
Yeah, but it's not in the same location as when we were first started playing out in Youngstown, but it's definitely one of our favorite places.
I love how unassuming that fucking place is.
Yeah.
Like the first time we went there, like I was like, did we drive like 2 hours to play like a
hole in the wall?
Yeah, hole in the wall. Like we're gonna where they have to move the pool table so the bands can play. Is it gonna be one of those fucking things? And then you walk in there and it's this is almost nicer than any venue in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I love.
Oh yeah,
it's so nice in there.
It's a classic place.
Yeah, it's classic.
And they have a phenomenal beer selection.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they have great food there, and
the guy that owned the place was making
Billy,
us try this hot sauce that he had.
Yeah,
it was just man, this is great. You're just giving us hot sauce and there's good beer. It sounds good.
They're all very nice.
Sign me up.
And the sound engineer is awesome.
Yeah,
Pete Trevere.
awesome.
So
yeah,
it's great. So we just
Pete's been recording a lot of stuff for the Get Hit bands.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's right.
I've yet to meet him.
Yeah, right. So that we're connected.
Yeah,
he's a really nice guy. So so go ahead, Trevor. You were saying we got sidetracked by Cedars.
Okay, so you're playing in Youngstown, Ohio, at Cedars.
We're bringing our buds Jake the Hawk from Pittsburgh, and then we're playing with a band called Between the Witches, and from Youngstown. And if you know Cedars, Eric, the guy who's usually running the door, plays bass in that band. So, so we're doing that, and then on the second we're playing Smiling Moose. So that'll be our Pittsburgh release show. Cool. And that's with the band called Old Money Jesus, which is one of my favorite Pittsburgh bands because they sound very similar to us in a lot of ways. Heard of them. Yeah, they're very new. The main guy is Alexi Morrissey, and he's kind of been in the scene for a while. A lot of people know him. Bass player plays in Skeletonized. Can't remember his name, unfortunately, but and we're also playing with Hex Hollow, which is also a newer band. Matt McDowell is the guy who runs that. So it's a heavy psych, very 3 bands that have a very similar sound. I think.
Well, that's great cool. That you're finding those like-minded, sounded bands to play with, even some that seem to be a little bit outside of the metal realm. Which not that there's anything wrong with the metal realm, but it's cool to keep branching out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we are, I don't know when this will be out, but we'll be playing on the 17th of this month with Rebreather, Monty Luna from Austin, and Motometer from Pittsburgh. That's at Goose Keys. And then we've also got some stuff, so depending on when this is out, we're going to be playing at the end of June in Pittsburgh, and hopefully by maybe a summer festival that starts with a D that we all know and love.
Yeah.
Be possibly there. Don't want to spoil that. And
you probably know you're playing because you probably got the same email today that I got.
We are, but we're trying to be nice and not really,
We won't disclose the date that we recorded this conversation.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. It's after whenever it was publicly announced.
You did not send out the emails today.
Sorry, Hugh.
Hugh's not even listening to this. He's too busy juggling emails.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
He's worried about mail bill.
He's in email purgatory.
Yeah, I'm sure he is. I know it said not to respond to the email, but I just wanted to thank you for.
I had to respond to the email.
Oh God!
just to be funny.
No, because
you have to
because the venue that he has New Violence playing just would not have worked.
Oh no!
The patrons of the venue would not cared very much for us, and we would not have fit in it.
Well, it's good to let them know that.
Yes,
that's an important email to send.
Yeah, it's just kind of look, everybody's working really hard on this festival. I want to make sure everybody has a good time
for anybody.
It's okay, what can we do? It's good. Everything's ironed out.
Good.
Good to go. Shout outs to Hugh.
Yep.
And I think that's it.
Yeah, we have a website, so it's listentothelonghunt.com, and that'll have all our fun little adventures on it.
Yeah.
Descendants of Crom later in the year. We're playing the Halloween tribute show with Banked
as the Smashing Pumpkins.
So.
That rules.
Yeah.
Already learning
really
some
excited.
songs. Yeah.
I'm really excited about it.
You know what's funny, actually, and I did want to fucking bring this up. There's a lot of elements to your guitar playing that reminds me of early Smashing Pumpkins.
Really?
I could see that.
I could see that. I'm not now, but I'm
not the songwriting, but there's just something with the tones.
Yeah.
It's very Siamese Dream-esque Smashing Pumpkins in a good way because I love that record. But there's just with some of the melodies and the specific the tones. This sounds very there's that tinge of sort of a 90s rock or grunge sort of backbone in the sound mixed in with everything else.
Yeah.
Mark's a big Gish fan, so he would like that as well. Although, Gish is pre-Siamese Dream, but I think that's cool. I agree with you.
Yeah, I thought about it and I was like, yeah, I want to bring that up. And then it just escaped my mind. And hey, it all comes full circle.
That's probably the only album of theirs that I've really ever listened to be
Siamese
honest.
Dream.
Yeah.
Yeah. It comes to closing the circle, like track 3 on our new record.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
Cool. Well, and that is all, folks. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the conversation. One more time, Trevor, Allison of The Long Hunt. Shout outs to Mark, who is not here, who is off in a distant marshmallow coma or whatever.
Yeah. He's recovering from a camping trip.
Yeah.
Yep.
And thank you so much for being here. June 1st, be sure to check out the album. All paths lead to here. I'll be back again next week with another episode. Same time, same place, same channel. You know the drill. My name is Sikes. Start the beat 2018. Woo! Woo! Give him one.
Woo, woo.
Woo.
Thanks for listening.
Thank you. Caught us off guard on the woos.
Yeah.
We didn't
Yeah, I'm not,
practice. We're not really
used
into
to
wooing.
emotional things.
Everybody does the woos.
Yeah.